Hi, this is going to be a series of videos where I build a turn-based strategy game. Uh, it's not going to be strictly a tutorial or a follow-along. It's more of a I'm going to build this thing, and you can see my approach. I guess you can code along if you want. Um, so yeah, it's more for interest and like a devlog type of thing, I guess. So yeah, I'll just get stuck in and parts where I think I can probably explain them, then I'll explain them. Some code will be followed along from blogs. Some can be from AI if I ask it to generate some code. For the most part, it'll just be me coding with the ideas I've come up with. So yeah, that's the basis of it. That's generally what I'm aiming to do. I'll just start off by building a base unit. So this is going to be a a character basically. If you think of Final Fantasy Tactics or Disgaea or one of these types of games, you have multiple units, and outside of combat, they have specific data that's applied to them, stats and a name and things like that. But then when they're in combat, there'll be other stats that are important, or not stats, I guess, other data that becomes important, like position, for position on a battle map, or direction for what direction they're facing. These aren't things that you need outside of combat, so that's why I would split the two up. You would have a unit and a battle unit. So I'll just apply those. What's this? And then add battle unit. So in unit, you can have things like the name, private string, and then have some kind of accessor for it. Public string, display name, get return display name. And that's probably fine for now. Battle unit will have some kind of field for the unit that it is representing. And maybe a position. I think I'll make a vector3 int just to keep it exact which position it's in. I don't want any floating point problems. Private, and I guess you would have some kind of property for that too. The reason I've not added a way to set these is I can add that later as I get to it, um, and maybe you would want to make it its own method so you can run other code at the same time. Uh, so yeah, that's probably fine for now. Right, time to try and build the um, the battle maps with some kind of grid system, dynamic grid system, and pathfinding. So let's try something. So the idea behind a grid system is I don't want any actual grid in the game. I want it to be a dictionary, and anytime a unit is added to the map, it will create maybe a grid object, and it will take up a space on the screen, and it will be a vector 3 int. I'm not explaining this too well, I'll just code and you'll see what I mean. So probably mono behavior. Let's go grid system. And then maybe grid object. And I'll be asking Grok for some pointers on the A star pathfinding. So grid system is going to have a private dictionary of vector3 ints and grid objects. Public void add a grid object, remove a grid object, and maybe just on awake I will initialize this. In grid object we'll maybe a struct. Well, I'll see. We'll just see what happens. It's going to have a position for sure. Private, but it will have a property that you can access. And I will set the position there. It will have some kind of content. Content. Oh, this should be game object. Public void set content. Must be fully assigned before control. Okay, well we don't want a struct then. So the grid system will be built up of these objects, but we don't want to create one unless something is actually in that position. So grid object dictionary. If it already contains something at that position, return, because it should not be able to hold multiple objects on the same square. Or maybe this is a list. Content list. Let's just roll with it. So be add content and remove content is what we're looking at. If the content list does not already contain that. Um, so you can't add the same object twice. We don't want that. Um, and then maybe something like public bool has content. I don't know if we'll need that. Maybe. So if there already is something at that position, don't add it. Otherwise, should be safe to add the grid object at that position. And then similarly, if the grid object does not contain a key of that, we will return early. Otherwise, it's safe to remove. And maybe even set it to null. And then remove it. Okay. Public bool does grid object exist, and we'll pass in a position. So we're just checking if something exists at that position. Return grid object dictionary contains key position. And then I think it feels too early, but I don't know. I think you want to get pathfinding sort of in. Okay, let's move on for a bit. Okay, state machines, in some kind of common folder. I will add a state and a state machine. So the way this will work is a state machine will simply add or remove a state class based on what you tell it to. Yeah, that's it. So there will be some kind of public state, current state. Again, maybe should be locking this down. Private state, current state. There'll be some kind of way of changing state. Remove previous state. Actually, remove current state, add new state. And we'll call it exit and enter. So there'll be some logic there, and then enter state, there'll be some logic there. Public void enter state, public void exit state, and then we want something that will be overwritable. So protected void on enter state protected. This should be virtual, so I can override it. So a state will have a protected bool of is active, post enter state, public void pre exit state. So when we enter the state, we're going to call on enter state, then we're going to call post enter state. So say when you enter the state, you want it to run some code, that's where it'll go, and enter state. And this should probably be, no, virtual's fine because we don't always want it to do something. And then after that, we'll set is active because you don't want something to happen. I use this for the update function. So if is active is false, we don't run any code in the update. But then I'll just chuck that in another public protected virtual void refresh. So this should be public so the state machine can reach it. But this will say if it's not active, just return because we don't want to run any refresh code. This is essentially update. So in the update, if the current state equals null, just return. Otherwise, run the current state's refresh. And then I'll do a fixed refresh as well. So let's do fixed update. So there's how we'll update the states. Protected virtual void on fixed refresh. That should not be virtual. If is active, return, otherwise on fixed refresh. So yeah, when we make subclasses of this, they will build upon on enter state, on exit state, and they will build upon on refresh for anything that should happen every update cycle, and and fixed refresh anytime it should run in the fixed update. So when you exit the state, we want to run pre-exit state first because we want to stop it from being active, and then we run the on exit state code. So the state machine will say, when you try to exit the state, first check if something actually exists, because sometimes the current state will be nothing. So we exit the state, then we enter the state. So here's where we will, oh yeah, I still need to remove destroy and destroy immediate, destroy the current state, and then just set current state equal to null. Really make sure it's nothing. Then when we enter the state, we want to add component t. I want to pass in. Is that it? Is that what we need? And then do the same thing here, where t is a state. Oh, don't need that. Don't need that. Add component t. This. Okay, so component has been added. Current state equals that which we have just added. Then we run enter state. So exit the state first, enter the new state, fix refresh. Silly bugger. So then I'll create the battle controller, which is going to be the state machine. And in start, we'll need to create some states. So a new folder for battle states. Create some kind of base battle state. So in here, you probably want some kind of battle controller accessor. Get I will turn this into an instance in just a moment. And I will add a change state function that will only take in a battle state. T is a battle state, and this is to lock off. We don't want the battle controller loading game states if we have a. Well, I will make a game controller later. So there'll be a game controller for game states and a battle controller for the battle state. But you don't want to be passing game states into the battle controller and vice versa. So that's I'll just do that, and that should cover it. So battle controller, let's see, make a quick singleton public static battle controller instance awake instance equals this. When I get further into the game, I probably will lock this down a lot more, or at the very least make the instance set much better. Check if the instance is null before setting it, otherwise destroy the object. So then, have some kind of initial battle state just to set things up, and then there'll be just a temporary battle state, but I will give it a usable name. Select action battle state. So the plan is, when you start battle, it will run the initial or init battle state. That will set things up, create the battlers, and then it's just going to move on to the select action battle state. And then that's where I can start testing things and setting up a bit better. So init battle state, I want to build upon battle state, and I will override on enter private I enumerator I enter. So if you do yield return null, that skips a frame to stop any funny business with switching states. Because technically, I think you can enter a state, and then if you immediately enter another state here or change state, there will be there will probably be an error or a missed error at some point when you try and exit a state, then enter a state, and there'll be some scripts being added to objects and removed. That might not happen immediately. I don't think it does happen immediately. It may be covered with this. If that was just destroy, you know what, Unity might shout at me if I try and do this, but we'll see. I haven't tested in a while. So enter state, start coroutine, I enter state, and then we're just going to change state to select action battle state. This is not a battle state yet, so I think that's why it was screaming at me. Override on enter state. I am just gonna log some messages to say maybe in the battle controller or in the state machine. Entered state type of T, and then we'll do debug.log exited state, and then type of current. Oh, it'll be current state dot get type since it's already an object. So this is a type, and this is, I guess, an instance of that type. So anytime we exit a state, it should tell us. Anytime we enter a state, it should tell us. And that would be a nice way of just actually visualizing what's going on, getting some feedback. So on the start of the game, we'll just change state to know what, I might just add this here as well. Public void change state t where t equals battle state. Let's make this virtual so that each different state machine can do its own thing. Seems like I'm not allowed to because this part is different. Okay, let's keep that the same. Yeah, I don't want to hide it because I would like to just use it here. Change state t. Maybe just change battle state. And then I guess the states don't need that. The battle states. That can just be change state. Just says change battle state. Change battle state. It's kind of all the same now, but hey, still works. Okay, so let's just see what happens. If I create battle controller, reset that, battle controller, did I actually add anything to the controller? Don't think I did. At the start, change battle state, and then it'll be init battle state. So at the very start of the game, the battle controller will kick in and start sending us around different places. Entered init, exit init, entered select. Great, great stuff. So let's create a few units. I will make a prefab out of the unit, prefab out of the battle unit, sphere. I'll keep that. There's Lorik. This can be Pete, Susie, Amy, whatever. These are actually the ones I don't need. Great. Oh no, no, I do need them. So let's create 4 battle units just for each unit. Drag them in for now. That'll all be dynamically done later. So battle controller. Do I want to separate the logic of the controller and the actual battle itself, the battle contents? Let's add it to the battle controller. Serialize field. A list. So battle unit list. These are the combatants in a battle. I will just, I don't need to do that actually. I'll be manually adding them for now until later again. So let's just add that now. Battle unit list. Grab the 4 battle units, chuck them in. So these are the people that will be battling. So this is probably a time where I should add something to the battle unit just to give it some kind of visual. This is going to be its face. Huh? Oh. Okay. Visual gets its own thing. Then inside the visual you put the body and then put the face in the visual. So it has its own transform. So it should be going forward. So that's, I think that's the forward direction. Yeah, plus minus, plus minus. So there's its face there. And they're all standing on the same spot for now. So let's move them around. And while I'm at it, let's just change the camera some. So if I move, okay, that's not what I want. Minus 45, let's see. Yep. And then that should go forward. Okay, awesome. One of these is positive. There we go, that's probably what I'm looking for. So this is the one that's in 0, 0, 0 position. I want the camera to be focused on that one. That's probably a good spot there. So now I'm going to try and build some kind of round controller, I guess, or turn controller. Let's go turn controller. Now this won't be a state machine. It'll just have some values. it'll have its own list of battle units. Turn order list, because the list we have in Battle Controller is a list of all the units in the fight. Turn Controller will hold a list of sorted units based on who's closest to taking their turn. I enumerator, something like round, I think. So some of this is from the Liquid Fire tutorial that I've seen before. He creates an I enumerator and then he steps through it rather than just running it and then being finished. He uses dot move next to like move through it. I think that's a really cool way of doing it. So so at the very top of this, we can do a little bit of setup, and then we go into a game loop. Um, do while something is true. So I guess we want some kind of boolean. No. Do while. There'll be a trigger at some point to say the game has been won or lost, but the combat is finished. Hmm. For now, I'll just have something really simple. Public static bool. Combat is complete. And at the start of the game, we'll set combat is complete equal to false because it's just starting the combat. And then in this while loop, we can say continue to go through the loop while, just while true really. But then we will have some kind of check after each person's turn, maybe? No, that doesn't work either. There needs to be a smart way of breaking out of this. So do while true. Let's just do that. But is it yield return null? I think. And then as how does this work again? I think it was something like you just set a value equal to round, and then you use the round dot move next, and then that means every time this gets to a yield, it will stop. And then you do move next, it'll go all the way around, back to that and stop. So let's pad this out a bit more so you can see what the point of this is. Um, let's try and think. So we assume that once it reaches the top, it's a new round. So maybe we'll say round equals 0. So it's a new round. turn order list dot order by it will be unit or battle unit dot unit. I guess I can't make a turn order unless I add some stats. So I've jumped the gun again. Let's get some stats in here. Stats and a stat. So stat is going to be an enum, just with some kind of identifier, a unique identifier for the stats. I don't want to, you know what, I shouldn't go crazy over coding this. There'll be a turn counter and maybe speed. And that's fine. Back in the unit, we will have a public stats. So we'll have a property called stats that will just grab the component stats off of our unit. So let's check out stats. It's going to be a mono behavior. Let's make private dictionary of stat and int. Stat dictionary. What is this? Get out of here. So there'll be some kind of stat dictionary, and we'll have ways of accessing or accessing the stats. Public int get, and then we'll pass in stat, and that will just say if stat dictionary contains key stat, return stat dictionary stat. Otherwise, return 0. And probably log an error. Trying to get stat unknown stat. And then, yeah, there'll be some way of setting a stat. And in here, it's going to be a bit trickier. We'll need to add some kind of events that just send out triggers to other components saying that a stat has changed, or even UI components. So if the HP changes, then maybe a heads-up display or in a menu or something, that value will update. So if stat dictionary contains key stat, but we'll flip it. We'll say if it doesn't contain the key, same thing here, trying to set unknown stat, and it will just return. Otherwise, stat equals value. So if we go on the prefab and add a stats component to the prefab, it should update all these. Nice, they've all got stats now. And now battle units will want a very simple way of accessing those stats. So I would say we probably want a property on this as well that says public stats get, but it won't be just get stats because that's this object obviously. It'll be get unit stats. So now anytime you want this unit's health or speed or whatever, you don't need to go into the unit object or into the unit class and then get the stat. You can just go straight into stats from here. I think that's a good way of doing it since you'll be using this all the time. So where does that leave us? Units have the capability to have stats now, but they don't actually have stats. So I'm going to start closing up some of these into different folders. Units can see, it won't just be units that have stats, but I would like to get it out of here somehow. Maybe entities. We'll call them entities because we can have, like I say, traps or decoration. Maybe those would come under the umbrella of entities. Doors, if you want to have some sort of dynamic or more interactive world for your turn-based game. You may want doors that can be destroyed. So then those would be entities with stats. They just wouldn't have sort of speed because they wouldn't act. So let's just get units and entities and get all that in entities. I'm hesitant with battle unit. That might be better put into just a battle folder or something. Okay, so a unit. I think I'd like some kind of empty object that is a stat to value. And this is going to have, it's going to be serializable. I'd like to see it in the inspector. I don't know if I need that as well, but public stat and then public int value. Maybe don't. I maybe need this. You know what? I don't think I do need anything on that because it's just it's just an enum. So if I do that and then have maybe in the unit itself, let's do serialized field, private list of stat to value, and then we'll call this default stats. Again, there'll be probably a better way of doing this later on, but for now, this seems like a decent way of just setting the unit's default stats. You could do it as you go as well. It's quite a decent way of doing it. Set default stats. And here we will just loop through each thing in default starts, or each each start to value, and then just set the start. So we'll say starts dot set default starts start, and then default starts value. So this just loops through everything that's in here, and then whatever the start is, we'll set that start to that value. So let's see in action, we'll add something here. Default starts, let's add speed is going to be 10. And then this one, speed is going to be, say, 9, 8, 7. So in combat, when we sort by the speed, or we tally up the speed for the turn counter, it should go Lorik, Pete, Susie, and Amy. I'm just going to test, see if I get any strange errors. I don't think I should though. Okay, trying to set on. I see, nothing has been added yet. Okay. Um, initialize. I guess in the stats, it should initialize itself. So on awake, start dictionary, but then we will loop for. This is a little trick I think I also learned from the Liquid Fire website. If you add count to the end of an enum, you can use that to get how many things are in here. So you just do start.count, but then turn it into an integer. So now you're looping between 0 and 3. Start dictionary. So you're doing the reverse now. You get the start of the number. So when this is 0, it's none. When it's 1, it will be speed, and so on. We'll just initialize everything to 0. Okay, so far so good. So back to the turn controller, we should be able to now say order by battle unit, and then we're grabbing the stats. Why is this not happy now? Grab the stats of the battle unit dot get, and then we're getting the speed stat. Actually, no, we're getting the turn counter stat. So every round, or every looper round, I guess. How does this work? So I know how some other games work, but I'd like to use a turn counter that it starts at 0, or maybe starts depending on an external factor from your stats, and then you just add the speed value that everyone has to their turn counter, and then when someone's turn counter reaches a certain point, maybe 100 or 1000 or something, then they can act. This is an interesting system that lets speed actually be a critical factor. So thieves or ninjas or whatever, they can act maybe 3 times when other classes are acting twice. As opposed to games where everyone just gets one turn every round and that's it. But then I need to worry about how many rounds, how many ticks constitute a round. Do rounds even matter, or is it just purely going to be turns? I think rounds probably don't matter. Order them by who's closest to getting a turn. Let's add some constants just in here. Private const turn counter filled. Say that's around 100. So if we order them and then add everyone's turn order list dot count dot starts dot set set the turn counter equal to battle unit equals turn order list, and then turn counter equals battle unit dot starts dot get turn counter, and then we'll set the battle unit. It's much easier to read once you give it an actual name rather than this nonsense. So battle unit starts set, and then it will be turn counter plus their speed. So get speed. And then once we've added everything, maybe this should be a function of its own. Private void order battle unit list. Order battle units by speed. So we'll just chuck that in there so we can just keep running this rather than the actual piece of code. And then I guess if we sort them, then add, maybe we don't need to sort them at first. We'll just add, then we'll sort them, and then we'll say if the battler at the top of the list battle unit, I want to have some way of just calling a function here to say who is at the top of the list. But maybe I don't need to. Maybe it's too much. If turn order list 0 dot starts dot get start dot turn counter is less than Turn counter filled. Continue. So we add everyone's speed to their turn counter. Then we order them by speed. This is probably descending. Order by descending. Because we want the highest first. And then we get whoever's at the top and check their speed counter or their turn counter. And if it's less than what is required to take a turn, we just continue. So we skip what's in here and we just go back to the top and add more. But if someone is ready to take their turn, um, then I guess it will have a do while turn order start get. So we will continue to loop until someone's turn counter is lower than what's required to take a turn. So in here will be who maybe, because the reason I've done this is maybe multiple people will have reached over the required number. So you just need to loop and then make sure all of them get their turn before resetting again. So in here somewhere will be their yield return. Turn controller, let's get some values for current actor, etc. Acting battle unit. So in here we'll do acting battle unit equals turn order list 0. This will probably be so that there may be a state change in here. Maybe select um, select battle unit. Select battle unit. So in here, when we first enter the state, we will want to push the turn controller to the next point. So this is round private. Hmm. Maybe something like this is maybe bad, but if I call it like turn tracker and then public static next. Mm-hmm. Should the turn controller be in control of this, or should it be in the battle controller? Well, anyway, let's go to init, and now we actually have something worth initializing. So turn controller, it's private at the moment, so turn controller. Maybe have a public static void setup or initialize or something. And here we can set the turn tracker equal to round. Okay, probably shouldn't have any of this as static. It causes more trouble than it's worth. I'll have a private turn controller, which will return get component turn controller. So if I just say battle dot turn, battle dot turn dot initialize, which will set the tracker equal to round, and then in here we'll do something like battle dot turn dot next, and change state to so let's see, debug log the name of the new unit whose turn it is. Unit's turn acting battle unit dot so select battle unit battle state, then it pushes us to select action battle state, and then in here I will show the use of refresh. So because this is just update, you can add in input get key down keycode dot space. So here is where I will just press space to select a different turn. So when we get to the action battle state, if I press space, it will move to select battle unit, which will run next, which will print out the next person's turn, which will then change the state back to the action. So this will essentially create a hot seat of going ding, 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 ding. Unless I screwed up the turn controller somehow and it never actually gets here, which would be pretty horrible. So let's see, what does it do? Let's run the logic again. So loop forever. Add the speed to the turn counter. Sort them by speed descending. If no one is able to take their turn yet, continue. But if someone is able to take their turn, okay, yeah, it would have broken. It would have broken. Or maybe it just would have kept looping to this same person over and over again. We have no way of reducing their turn counter. So for now, when it becomes their turn, I will reduce their stats. But I think normally it would reduce by an action. So if you use an attack, maybe that's got a turn cost to it. So when you build up 100, it's your turn. Use attack, it removes 100. So you go back to 0 and start building up to your next turn. That's why when you get abilities, maybe you have defense and it means you can act quicker the next turn. Defense will only reduce your turn count by, say, half. It'll go down to 50 instead of 0. So then you only would need to wait half as long to get your next turn. So that's the idea. So once the stat gets set to minus that, it will, the next time we ask it to move, it will say, does someone still have the amount required to take a turn? If so, we'll just go back here. Oh, we need to resort after his turn. So after that, you reorder, and whoever is at the top, whoever is the next to act, if that is greater, we'll just loop back around and give them a turn. If it's not, then we'll go back to the top and continue filling again. So this has been a bit trickier than just setting up units, I guess, but it's quite nice, quite cool. Let's see. Okay, probably screaming at not setting up turn controller and things. I didn't even add it. Okay, so it's enter. Oh, init skips over selecting a unit, which is a problem. Init should actually select a battler. Not set to anything. Oh, okay, I've not actually grabbed the turn order list. So this is kind of nice because I've ended up doing it through this. I may just make a setup function for that. Do I need to pass through? Turn setup. And in initialize, I should pass in the battle unit list. add range. Okay, so init, we don't need to do that anymore. We just run battle.turn setup. And let's see if that sorted it. Nope. Oh, is it just not being initialized? Okay, okay. Do no, nothing like that. Okay, okay. This time. And then I'll need to pack it up for this video, I think. Okay. So exits init state, enters select battle unit. It picks Lorik, which was what we expected. He has the most speed. So if I press space, it should then select Pete. Okay, so something about the refresh isn't working. Let's see, let's see. We'll add some debug lines just to see if it's actually doing anything. On refresh should be called. Oh, virtual. We don't want that, I don't think. Oh, it's calling its. Was it? No, it wasn't calling itself. Okay, so it's just not running. That's fine. Uh, public refresh. Let's see. State machine. Is it this old problem again of update is being overwritten or overridden somewhere? Ah, that problem comes up a lot. So it may not have fixed the problem, but often what I see is when a subclass is using a keyword like start or update, um, the class you are inheriting from, if that also uses it, this seems to just be ignored because it's trying to run update on the subclass instead of the base class. So let's see, maybe that was it. So it should be Lorik, then Pete. Okay, well it did something. It just chose Lorik again. And Lorik again, and Lorik again. I wonder now if this is maybe making a copy rather than taking the actual object, which it shouldn't be doing. So setting that to minus. Should be setting it to 0. Um, Okay, let's do some more. Debug.log. We'll spit out unit, and turn order list 0 dot unit dot display name. Look, turn counter is starts, and then start dot turn counter, and then starts dot get. That's the one. It shouldn't be in brackets. Square should be round. And then we'll just copy this again and pop it in here. Okay, let's see. See if we can understand a bit better what's going on. So his counter hit 100, then it went back to 0. So we press space and it says it's 100 again. So why does no one else get a turn here? So I'm contemplating switching stats to use just a list and then just using the integer rather than a dictionary and then using the stat. That way you'd be able to actually see the numbers here. Is it because I'm using this? Let's just check. Let's copy this line, but we'll add acting battle unit instead. Although hold on, I think I've already checked this. So that sets turn counter to 0, and then it says turn counter. Okay, yeah, okay. So that is working. That's fine. Get rid of this line. Print turn counters. Turn order list dot count. We will just debug.log each of the units is turn counters. Oh, silly bugger. It's a logic problem again. Wait, is it? If the turn order's here, no, I think that should be fine. Reordering them by the turn counter. So at the start, let's just print turn counters, and then at the end, let's print turn counters, because that should show us the actual order before and after someone's turn. And then hopefully I can fix this before I need to head off. Okay. So did I leave in one? Yes, I did. Okay, 100, 90, 80, 70. So if I press space now, space pressed, Lorik's turn counter is 0. But I've just reordered it, so why is he still at the top? So it doesn't seem to ever want to reorder them. Order by descending, turn counter. Let's go again. Yep. So space pressed, Lorik takes his turn, it goes to 0. Everyone else's keeps building up, and then Lorik's eventually reaches 100 again. So this doesn't seem to do what I want it to. So we go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, and then it goes bing. It's his turn. So then you press space, and it goes. So that's after sorting it. Why? Lorik's still at the top with 10. I asked a little bit too much. So hold on. So it does want to. Does it want something? Turn order list equals that. Oh my god. It wasn't actually doing anything. It was just creating another one and then not doing anything with this. Oh my god. Okay. This is definitely it fixed now. I remember doing this a million times, adding the to list at the end. And for some reason I forgot. So I think that's it now. I can get rid of all this shite and just test it. I'm that confident. You know what would have been better? I should have mixed these values up for testing, so it wasn't always in order. Okay, let's go. It's Lorik's turn. Oh look, it's Pete's turn. And then it should be Susie, then Amy. Susie's turn, Amy's turn, Battle Lorik. There we go. Okay, that's great. Now it's hot seating them. So yeah, that'll be it for this video. That's the turn controller. I'm selecting a unit. Maybe I'll try and do some battle map stuff again. Get into the node system or the grid system, and then some pathfinding. Maybe get a little visual board or something. All right, see you in the next one.